guys to everyone. Today we have a huge guitarist. I want to introduce Chris Caffery from, I don't know, I want to say Savatage, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, or just simply Chris. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's good to talk to you.
I'm very pleased and amazed that you're here. So I'm perfectly fine. I'm happy. And I want to start immediately with one question that for me it's really important to ask to the musician, especially guitarist. And so what gets Chris into music and especially guitars?
Well, I think I was probably less than 5 years old when I'd gotten my first little record player, and I showing my age, but that's what we got. And I would listen to the Beatles and I just liked it. But it's funny, I liked the heavier songs, and back when I was a little kid, there really wasn't. I mean, Black Sabbath had just started, and those kind of things weren't really things that my parents would see because they weren't looking for my music in record stores. They were kind of just like, let's get them a Beatles record. And I think you don't want to buy your 4-year-old kid a Black Sabbath record. So I think that's kind of what that was. But there was just something about, the songs like Help, and Revolution, and ones that just had a little bit more attitude to it. And then when we would go to stores, I would notice back then there was like smaller my family didn't have a lot of money. There were stores that were called like surplus stores, and they had, various different kinds of everything. And I would stare at the electric guitars because I was just always fascinated.
You were like attracted by them. There's some energy, it's glowing.
I think I was probably in first grade, or maybe I was six years old when they were having what we called show and tell in school, when you would bring toys or whatever. And I sang Help for the class when I was 5 or 6 years old. God. I think that it's just something I thought was really cool. And the scary part about the whole thing when I think about it now is that I had no backup plan. Like I did not think of what I would have done if I didn't do what I did. I mean, I had zero backup plan. So
because you showed your talent really, young, you was a child, so your talent leads you to your path of today. So basically you were really lucky to have this huge amazing talent, which was nice, natural for you, and it gives you basically all your backup plan was that basically it was meant to be, because you started your first demo came out when you were really young.
Actually, I was 17 years old when I first met Paul O'Neill, and it's funny because I credit, and not that I'm telling anybody that they should ever do this, but I credit fake ID to and it actually wasn't even fake ID. It was my brother's ID because back at the time in New York where I was living, New York and New Jersey, while I was living in New York at the time, the drinking age was 19.
Yeah.
And my brother was 19. He was the drummer that was in my band at the time. He was 19. I was 17. Now they moved the drinking age to 21.
Okay.
But if you were 19, you were able to go into the places that were 21.
Okay.
So at that point in time, there was no computers. There was no cameras. There was, there was no anything the way it is now. So my brother's driver's license was paper without a photo. And, he had a credit card at the time that had his name on it. So I would go to the bars and I would have his paper license. And of course I was only 17, but it's like, I probably looked 12 then, but I would get in, and he would come in 15 minutes after me when he had his new photo license that he had, and he'd get into the same place. And I wasn't drinking. I was just going there to watch bands. I mean, I got to go to the clubs and really, really cool bands. That's where, I'd actually met Ray Gillen when he was singing with the band Rondinelli. And I got to see a lot of the people that I liked as a guitarist that weren't in the arenas or theaters at the time. They were only playing in those clubs. So I got these smaller shows, but there was a place in New York City that had a Thursday night kind of like rock star hangout night that I knew somebody that could get me and my brother into, and I went, and that's where I met Alan Fryer from the band Heaven, the singer, and I gave him a demo tape, and he asked me to come down to the management, and that's where I met Paul, and I started working with them, and then from there, Paul just really, he kind of took a liking to me, and he had a vision in his head where he said, hey, I'm working with this band Savatage, and he just started working with me because I love the band and I'm producing the record. He says, but I really think the band needs a second guitar player for live, because he was producing a big sound in the studio.
So you got in touch with Savatage, you will reach for the live in the beginning.
Yeah, basically. And then he he was friends or done work with Wendy Dio before, and he got Savatage onto the Dio and Megadeth tour. Wow. And he asked me to go play on that tour, and that's how it all started from there.
Yeah, because basically we can say that you officially, I mean, you have the first appearance like in Savatage is with guitar ballet, but that is just only in the cover, because the riff you start producing song with them with that Winter Dead, right?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Actually, my first playing with them was on the Ghost in the Ruins live record, where I played, and actually I played some rhythm guitars on Japan Live too, which nobody ever really knows about. But yeah,
good to know.
Well, Paul always liked to have stereo guitars when he was mixing things. So the Ghost in the Ruins record, I went in and redid all my rhythm guitars. Like I played 2 tracks, so I was in stereo with myself. So, and we needed to match the sounds in order to make that work, because if you just mix me and you just had Chris, when he went to play a lead, Paul wanted to have the lead guitar up the center. He didn't want it to be mixed like an old Van Halen record, you know, where the lead was on one side or the other. But when you moved Chris in stereo up to the middle, the sound of the record lost the rhythm on one side. Now, if you tried to make a weird stereo version of me, it didn't sound right. So he wanted to have 2, and that's basically what we did with the Japan Live record too. It was recreated that image of stereo. So I was playing a lot of those parts. Now, I guess it was my mistake. A lot of things turn out being my mistake in time, but Gutter was recorded. And I was actually in the studio doing a record with the band called Dirty Looks at the time that Atlantic had. And I recorded the basics and drum tracks with them, but I didn't get along with the singer. So I had left him. When I went into the studio, when I got the call from Savatage, Chris had asked me if I wanted to do some tracks. I mean, he goes, you want to go record something? And I was like, it's done. Why? You know, and that was kind of like my mistake, because if I would have just done it and taken that opportunity to do it, I wouldn't always hear from people, oh, you weren't on that record. It's like, I wasn't on that record because I decided to let the record go as it was. I could have easily played on as many songs as I wanted to, but I wanted Savatage to get the record done. They had a deadline they wanted to meet, and I was like, you don't need to delay things for me. And the only things that really needed to be finished at that time were the mixing and mastering, and Paul at the very last minute decided to add Silk and Steel to the record, which he had the that rhythm guitar, which that wasn't played by Chris, the rhythm guitar. He just played the lead on that thing. And I remember he flew up from Florida. He did not want to be back in New York City to do that, because he thought he was done with Gutter Ballet. That was part of the reason too. Chris wanted to go home. If I was to record any other guitar tracks, he had to stay around with me while I did it. So he left, but then he came back to do Silk and Steel, and he walked into the room, and Paul turned the studio on, and he played one take, and it was the one you hear on the record, and he looked at Paul and he goes, "That's all you get, O'Neill," and he walked out, and me and him left and went to went to a Mexican restaurant to drink margaritas, and that's the real story of what happened with Soak and Steel. He played once, and that's
Yeah,
what he
that's
told Paul when he flew to New York. He said, "Paul, I don't want to come back. I'm going to go in. I am going to play one solo for you," and that was it. Paul likes to have 80 different takes so he could choose, and Chris is like, "That's all you're getting," and we laughed.
that's amazing. I mean, because of course with Savatage, then you basically release other three albums basically until 2001. So of course it's, I can say it's history of music. Of course, everyone knows the history of music. But I want to ask you if you see, you think your influences, your way of playing, brought a difference, in the composing of the further three albums until Poets and Madmen.
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, my guitar playing, especially rhythm wise, was very similar to Chris, which is
Yeah.
kind of how I got into the band in the
Mhm.
first place. I mean, Savatage did not want another guitar player. So there was it was a funny thing because when I first thought I was going to Florida to do the Dio tour, I got a call a week before I was supposed to leave from the
Yeah.
management, and he said that Savatage took another guitar player in Florida. And I had spent 4 months. I learned every Savatage song,
Oh.
every one on every record.
I
And
wanted to ask you here, which is your favorite to play with the guitar?
uh,
Like, which is your favorite? I mean, the one that you have main
no,
fun,
there's so many. There's so many different ones that would have to be like rhythms or leads or whatever.
Okay.
But I learned every. I told the management. I said, "Look, I said I want to do this. I said, let me fly myself to Florida and play with these guys. If they don't like me and they like the other guy better, they could use him. If they like me, pay for my plane ticket and let me stay and do the tour." So I went there, and first of all, they didn't even pick me up at the airport. They were supposed to pick me up. They didn't. They stood me up. I had to get a taxi cab like an hour out of the airport to them. So I
Adventures.
show up at their rehearsal studio, which is like some warehouse storage place in the middle of nowhere in Florida. And I had met them in the studio, so they knew who I was. I'd been in the studio when they were recording Mountain King. And we went to play, and they said, "Well, what do you know?" And I said, "I know everything." So I think they
Wow.
were thought they were being smart by picking something they might have thought I didn't know. So
Yeah.
Chris started playing the whip, and I think he, probably figured it was something that I didn't. It was like one of those obscure
Yeah. Yeah.
ones,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we played that, and then we played 24 hours ago, and then they stopped and left the room, like really abruptly, and they were like, "We want to use you on this." And the thing about it was, Savatage with me sounded better than Savatage without me.
That.
And they knew that instantly. And that was because of the fact that me and Chris Oliva's rhythm styles were exactly the same. And it's not anything that I had to be taught. It was just we had the same roots at that time. We
Yeah.
were basically the same age. We listened to the same guitarists. And that happened naturally. And no matter who tries to play the Savatage stuff in time, it's really, I'm not just saying it to be cocky. I'm probably the only person to ever do it exactly the same, because that's
Yeah.
who we were. And that's
Yeah.
why when things happen, I mean, we literally rehearsed 10 minutes for the Gutter Ballet tour.
Wow.
That was it. We showed up at the rehearsal because we did a couple shows in the
Yeah.
fall before that. Then we took off for Christmas, and we got to Florida we were flying to Europe to play with King Diamond, and Savatage hated rehearsing. So we got to the rehearsal room, and Chris's wife wanted him to be somewhere, and John's friends wanted him to be somewhere,
Yeah.
and Johnny Lee wanted to go fishing or something. So we get in the rehearsal room. We played, I think, She's in Love
Okay.
and something else off of Gutter. I forget what else we played. We played a couple of the songs that were in 440 because Gutter was tuned differently. So it might have been like She's in Love and Rage and War or something. And And Chris looked at his brother and said, we sound fucking fine. He's like, can I get the hell out of here? I said, yeah, we never finished. We never even played through a whole set. We played 2 songs, had our gear ready, took what we needed, packaged for Europe, and left. We never even rehearsed, because that's how good the band sounded. It sounded to me, it sounded like a band that had been together for years and years and years, and that was just
like there is a magic, a connection, thing.
Yeah.
Like you both understand each other, like you're fit perfectly with each other.
We literally rehearsed 10 minutes for the gutter ballad.
That's something amazing. But right now there's something that you're thinking about to do with Savatage. I mean, there's something that is going to do there, or it's just you're focusing on more, or for example with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra?
Well, for me personally, I never would have stopped Savatage. So it's not that, I was always there, like one of the fans, you know, whatever the reasons are, I don't even want to get involved in politics or anything like that. But I think right now, not just because it's been so long, I think everybody in the band really wants to do something. So I think if there was ever a time where we're closest to there being a rebirth of things, I think it's now. I mean, I'm gonna like knock on wood and say, but I got a really good feeling that something's gonna happen sooner than later. Yeah, fingers crossed with Savatage. I've been talking to John, and we've been writing, and Al's been writing, and I've even been getting on the phone with Zach and going over some of the ideas that I wrote that John wants him to sing instead of John. So we're in this creative motion.
Yeah, there's a creation. There is a creation creative air around you. And but of course, in the same period that you started, like with Savatage, you were in the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which is an amazing project that is getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year. So now, especially now, I see that you're starting to be on tour next month probably. So what about your journey with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which is, I say it again, incredible. Explain to people that maybe they don't know still yet, Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Yeah, I mean, that was a vision of Paul O'Neill's for a very long time. And when that started, I think he was the only person who really knew exactly what that was going to do. Because Paul was he was definitely a visionary, and he always knew. He would always tell me, even before we didn't even release the first record, and he was telling me, Chris, now when Trans-Siberian Orchestra headlines arenas, and we haven't even released a song yet, and he's telling me when it's going to headline arenas, what we were going to do. So he had that vision in his head, and I think that it was just something different. It's got a combination of a lot of different things, and unfortunately for us with T.S.O, a lot of our touring was in November and December of the year, so to get us to Europe for that would be impossible. We'd have to shut down the United States tour, and we got over to Europe a couple times, and there was plans to do a lot more.
I remember,
then Paul passed away, so I mean, he wanted to do what we did at Vak, and he was like, we're going to do that at the pyramids in Egypt. We're going to do that. Like he wanted to get the 2 stages.
something like Pink Floyd, like a Pompeii.
Yeah, it was going to go on everywhere, and probably would have. So, but
yeah, with this, monumental project. Right now, your tour is supposed to start right now. For the next month, because I saw a lot of dates involved. Because of course there is you, there is Doug Aldrich, Bas Elias, different musicians involved. So where we can catch up
with T.S.O or
with exactly.
Well, right now we're just everybody's kind of getting ready. It's only 6 weeks before I leave for rehearsal, and that you'll blink your eyes and that time will get away. So you have a lot of things I have a house and a large yard and a lot of things that I have to prepare for the winter time anyway. And then I just get myself and I kind of stay in shape all the year long. I make sure I get at least 10,000 steps a day every day, no matter what I'm doing.
That's important.
So I don't stop that. I consider my days off days when I only get 10,000. It's like, so I constantly keep myself there because that tour we do with T.S.O, we do 53 shows in 6 weeks basically.
My
So
God.
yeah, we're on my I'm on what's called the East Coast group because we have two different touring groups, but there's only 7 days on my tour that are one show in a day. All the other days are two that I play. So it's a very physical schedule, and you know, not that I'm too old, but I mean it's I'm not 21, you know, so it's like I like to keep myself in shape and be ready for that because I mean it's a lot. We do it, you know, about 5 hours a day on the stage, and I don't want to perform any less than I ever did, so I like to show up there.
Yeah, of course.
For the first show, like I've been there for 3 weeks, so it's
yeah. So that's and of course I wanna. Here's a question that because in Sicily you have to know that you have a huge fan. They can say they have an amazing band in Sicily and they have covering a lot of Savatage songs. And he's a guitarist, so you are his main influences. His name is Calogero, so at least if you can say just hi to him, he will think I will be super happy. Really, they perform past Friday, Savatage. So they asked me to make you this question about Dr. Butcher. He wanted to know why you didn't continue this project. Because he said it was an amazing project. What a pity. So can you ask him why?
You know what's funny with that? I mean, I'm kind of the same way with Butcher that I am with Savatage. Whereas Savatage stopped 20 years ago, Butcher stopped longer than that ago, and I would have done another Butcher record the next day. And there's always a reason for everything, and it's never me. So it's like I never don't blame Caffery. It's not Caffery's fault, but you know there was just some reasons. I think you know one of the main reasons at the time was we had Dr. Butcher, and then Chris had passed away.
Yeah.
You know, so the intention was for me and John just to do Butcher while Chris continued to do Savatage. And you know, it was funny. There was times when Chris even talked about stopping Savatage to join Butcher because he missed playing with me and his brother. You know, so it was one of these things. And then he asked me to join Savatage for Edge of Thorns, and I didn't want to leave John. So it was like, you know, I stayed.
Where am I supposed to go?
Yeah, I mean, I could have very easily never had a Butcher and just went into Savatage for Edge of Thorns, and that again was my choice to do what I did with John. And then, you know, we had Chris pass, and then John went out on the road with the band for a handful, and the Butcher record I actually finished when John had started on that tour. We finished that record, and I think that after that handful of rain bunch of shows and everything, that you know, it was pretty apparent to the band that, you know, the fans wanted to have an Aliva back in the band, but they also wanted to have me back in the band. They wanted to have somebody, not that Alex wasn't a brilliant guitar player, but they wanted that Aliva sound back in the band. And I think they knew that was part of my soul. So I think, you know, when Al came in, he kind of replaced, because Alex wasn't really doing Savatage full time. That wasn't what he wanted to do. So the Al kind of came in to be, at that point in time, would have been the new kind of style lead player like Alex, and I came back to bring back the Savatage sound. It's like I did all the rhythm guitars on Dead Winter Dead, you know, after I got in, and just we just started working with that. And then when we went on the road on that tour into Europe, I think we were really surprised at first at exactly how the band was received, right? I mean, that band was special. That record was really special. And, you know, that version of Savatage with Al and John and Zach together, and it was something I think that, you know, was in a lot of ways as strong to the fans as the Gutter band. It's not, you know, it'll never be Savatage without Chris Aliva in that way, but the fans connected to that band, and we had something with that, which is why I think that if we put that band back together again and did another record, it would be really, really special for him, and that's why I always try to push it, because
Yeah.
we're probably one of the few. I mean, a lot of these bands get back together, but we're all still there, and we're all still able to do it. So, I mean, the Butcher thing, me and John have actually been writing songs, thinking of doing a Butcher thing again right now, but I've gotten texts and phone calls from Zach, and some of the songs that I had written or had written, Zach is telling me, "Oh, John wants to hear me sing this song," and I'm like, "Well, wait a second, that was supposed to be a Butcher song." So I think if anything, again, Butcher will probably wind up taking, the side seat to it, to what would become another Savatage record, but we'll see. And that's kind of it with that. I mean, I think Butcher would have been tremendously huge. I really do, because it was coming out at a time when, the bands like Pantera and the heavier metal.
Yeah.
And then, you had things that like Marilyn Manson that had not really come out yet. And or like a Rob Zombie, we wanted to have Butcher have that kind of horror show thing happening on stage. And that was, something that we liked in the idea of that band. And I think again, that's something that probably would have been tremendously huge if it couldn't have. But I mean, it's just one of these things where the family with T.S.O. and with Paul and John and everybody, it was kind of hard for any of us really to disconnect and put the attention into any one individual thing outside of what we were doing. So, I mean, unfortunately, something had to get, the third wheel in that situation, and that was Butcher.
Yeah, of course. So just before ending, I just wanted to ask you if you want to, as a musician, of course, as a guitarist, usually I ask, influences, but I think that mainly most important the people that listen and Chris, and especially they're influenced by you. Who influenced you as a guitarist?
Wow, there's a bunch. I mean,
you have to pick one. Really,
I like Michael Schenker a lot as a lead player.
Okay.
And that he's probably a lot. Michael Schenker and Randy Rhoads are probably a lot of the reason why my playing wasn't made of a lot of finger tapping, because everybody was going to Van Halen at the time, and that's when I kind of, being the punk rebel that I always was, I went to try to pick something different. Now, Chris Oliva, he liked Eddie and Schenker, so he kind of mixed the two. That's where he was a huge Eddie fan, but not that I wasn't, but I think I specifically went out of my way not to have that be my primary influence becoming me. So, and I liked Maiden and Priest, and I was really into the traditional metal, but I also liked like Rush and Triumph and things that were very musical too. So I kind of just had a big blend of a lot of different people. And, luckily for me, I did have a chance to work with someone like Chris, and learn things from him and get taught that way, and worked with people like Al, and I had a lot of other people come along the way that showed me things. There was actually a guitar player that I ran into. There was this band called Sun Red Sun. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, but it was this kid named Albie Romano, and he was working with Ray Gillen and Mike Starr from Alice in Chains on this band he had called Sun Red Sun. And Ray was very sick at the time, and he knew that I knew Ray. So he came to me one night in New York City to kind of ask me questions, because there was a lot of weird questions about Ray Gillen, as did he have AIDS, did he not have AIDS, what's going on. So he came to me figuring I would know somewhat of the truth and whatever. And Albie and Ray had a falling out. Me and Ray kind of reconnected as friends right before he passed. I actually was writing songs with Ray in his mom's house the week before he went into the hospital for the very last time, which was kind of creepy. But once Ray passed, Albie came back to me and asked if I wanted to hang out and maybe do some stuff on his record, because Albie, he was a very good guitar player. He never really had a huge break in his career, but he had a very large guitar collection, and he would go to some of the greatest guitar players in the world. Like Leslie West had taught him how to play, and he would go to people like Michael Schenker and Yngwie Malmsteen, and he would give them really expensive pieces of musical gear if they would show him how to play things. And he just had a lot of knowledge in his playing, and a lot of the it factors, I think, that you don't know unless you've gotten around some of these really good guitar players behind the scenes to really dig inside their playing. And he sat down with me in his house and he listened to some of the tapes and recordings I had, and then I played for him, and he said something that changed my guitar playing for the rest of my life. I think I was probably 22 or 23. We hadn't even recorded the first Butcher record, the final version of it yet at that time. And he said to me, how, and no offense in this, he said to me, "How long have you been playing like a girl?" And I was like, huh? He gave me a white Gibson Flying V that I still have, and a little Fender practice amp. Then the guitar had really heavy strings on it, and the strings were real high off the neck. And he said, when you could play like you're playing now in this guitar out of this little amp, and it was just, he wanted me to play harder and use my hands and my arms and my bones to get the tone out of the guitar more than just, you know, a lot of distortion and sounds and you know, like these kids sit there and are sweeping and doing all these things online. I mean, it's easy to do that, but if you get into the really difficult guitars, it's not that easy to do that. And I think that's what he wanted. And that was something that Chris Oliva actually said to me once, because he went to my house and I had a little Marshall combo. It was like a tiny little Marshall stack in my bedroom, and I had a distortion on the little Marshall, and when Chris played out of it, he said to me, he's like, "There's a lot of gain on that." And Chris was mostly working with the clean sound, and then he distorted the clean amp. And I think that that's where I learned that too. So most of my sounds I work with now are very small amounts of gain. You know, it sounds like it, but I could pretty much play clean out of my distorted sounds by just not hitting the strings hard. So that sound, that distorted sound is there no matter what I'm doing, and it's coming out of how hard it is I pick and hit the strings. So I had a lot of, you know, a lot of different players that I watched, and you know, like I said, I played with people like Alex and Joel and Al, and I mean, I've had chances to pick up things from everybody, but you know, in all, it's like some of those influences I had were some of the biggest ones, you know. Or if you toured with people like Tone Iommi when I did the Heaven and Hell tour, whenever you would just watch some of these people, you know. It actually kind of gets funny because when Savatage, Judas Priest, KK Downing was one of my biggest influences too. Is like my whole thing with the flying V's and the blonde hair. And when I was a 12-year-old kid, I won backstage passes to see Judas Priest, and I met him in the band, and I was probably the youngest kid at their show. It was at a theater in New York City on the British Steel tour, and he asked me what I wanted to do when I got older. I said, well, I want to be like you. And Savatage got to open for Priest on the Poets and Madmen tour for 6 weeks in Europe, and they were always so nice to me on that tour because we always talked about that time. But we're on that tour, and KK would come up to me all the time, and he'd be like, "I love your guitar sound. What are you doing?" And he was using a Rocktron or some digital thing in his sound, and he was fighting it every day, and he hated it. And all I was using was a Marshall and plugging pretty much straight into it. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I did exactly what it was you did." What Priest had was the Marshall and the flying V, and that's, you plugged into it and you turned it up. I'm like, that's what I did, you know. So kind of those situations where you had your idols looking at you wondering what the hell it was you did for your guitar sound. I'm like, I just copied you. You're the one who went in the direction.
Well, that's amazing. Before ending, of course, I would just if you just could say a simple hello to this guy that humbly really is inspiring. I'm really saying inspiring to you. His name is Calogero.
Okay.
And he really loves you. Just say it simply. I will think he will cry after that.
So what do you want me to do?
Simply an hello to him. His name is Calogero.
How the heck do I Say and spell that.
You can say just Calo.
So it's what?
Calo.
Carlo.
Calo. Calo.
Just so you just want me to say hi, Carlo?
Yeah, just say hello, Calo. Thanks to you. Thanks. Just something like for me. You will be really happy about that, really.
All right. Hi, Carlo. It's nice to talk to you. Where are you?
He's from Sicily.
You're not here, Carlo. Where are you? We miss you. No.
He's from Sicily, and his band really is taking a lot of influence from Savatage.
Awesome.
So I wanted to thank you, Chris, really for this interview, and I'm looking forward. Probably I will still be at some gigs to Trans-Siberian Orchestra, probably. I would really like to have an interview online physically. That would be amazing. Just like I say, thank you, and let's catch up
thank you.
soon.
And hopefully, if it's not with Savatage, maybe sometime at least in the next couple of years, I can maybe get over there with Fabio and the Spirits of Fire thing and do some music, because we've been talking
amazing.
Doing some shows maybe in South America down there where he just played with Anger and this and that. That last Spirits of Fire record was a lot of fun for me. I had a lot of fun with that record. So it's a really good metal record. So we'll see, but hopefully we'll get back over there sometime sooner than later with Savatage, because I definitely miss the. I mean, I love playing everywhere on the planet, but I miss the European fans and South American fans. I miss the festivals. I mean, there's not really any way you can replace the feeling of a heavy metal festival.
Of course, I agree. I agree completely.
It's something magic. Like I said, it's so much fun to get in front of those crowds, and I think we're at a point too with Savatage to where, the fact that it's been 20 years since we've played, you got to figure there's going to be a lot of kids that never saw Savatage. So it's not even just getting to see the Savatage fans to see it again. If somebody had a 5-year-old kid the last time Savatage played, they're 25. If somebody wasn't even born, they're 20. So I mean, there's a lot of people that have never had a chance to see it.
I was 14.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was 10. No. So it's just one of these things where I think it's time for that band to play. I mean, as much as I think a lot of people are excited to see, the Pantera reunion, whatever that's being titled, the celebration or whatever. I mean, Savatage, we have a full version of the band that played as Savatage, so it's a little bit different. We're able to go and reunite, the Wake of Magellan tour. We headline Wacken as Savatage in that lineup on that tour. So I mean, that version of that band was as big as anybody. We were headlining big at that time. So it's like, I think it'd be one of these things where, when we came back in 2015, we were at that point, and I think around the world we could probably show up to most festival situations, and if we're not headlining, at least be second on the bill and really close to headlining. So.
Yeah, but I mean, if you do a reunion, I think that people, the organizer of that, they're gonna try to catch you like on the headline, because it's Savatage is like it's a big name. Come on, just
it's been a very long time too.
Yeah.
So it would be one of these things where it would be a celebration too, in the same way that people would be celebrating the Pantera music. They'd be able to celebrate.
Because even people that, for example, are into metal, they probably never heard Savatage. They know that there is a huge band called Savatage. So that's not something like, okay, who is this band? They know. It's like, Iron Maiden, but you never listen maybe to Iron Maiden. Maybe you listen to Priest or to whatever. There is this.
For me, it would be fun too if we could do some things with if the Pantera thing does wind up doing multiple shows and dates. It would be fun to do that kind of thing, because I consider the Oliva brothers to be as instrumental in heavy metal history as the Abbott brothers, in my personal feeling. So it's like, and I know for a fact the last time I saw Vinny, he came up to me and told me that because we were pretty good friends with the Pantera guys. They would always come see Savatage. They were big Savatage fans, and he told me that day in Columbus, before they went on stage, the last thing him and his brother did together before they went to play that show is they were listening to Hall of the Mountain King on their tour bus. So it'd be pretty cool to go out and get an opportunity to play in that situation with Phil and that, if that winds up going on. But you know, it's just one of these things. Like I said, the Oliva brothers, in my personal opinion, are as important to the history of heavy metal.
Yeah, it's history. It's something that is stated there. Doesn't change. It's history. It's stated there. So that was I'm really thankful that you shared all these, we can say, amazing, thoughtful things about music, because interviews are always, you know, about question and answer. But you went through really in a personal way and a thoughtful way, which is beautiful in my opinion. So I have to really say thank you, Chris, because it's really, I think will make think to, you know, a lot of young guys that are approaching to music and are looking to you maybe as an influencer, like as a hero guitar. I wanted to say, what would you say to them? You know, I'm a young, for example, I'm 16 years old and I want to start to play guitar or drums or whatever. Just what do you feel to tell them, to motivate them to just not give up?
Well, I mean, the business is completely different now. So, you know, I wish I could look in my crystal ball and tell them exactly what it is that they should do. I mean, the most important thing to do is just really follow your heart and your soul. And if it's what you want to do, you got to give yourself that opportunity. Now, you have so many chances to sell yourself through the internet. Unfortunately, it's kind of screwed up, you know, the record sales and the way you make money off of selling the music. But you know, you could still be entertainment, you know, and a lot of money is made off of bands once they get on the road. So I think the best thing to do is to just, you know, try to give yourself an identity, because out there in the world, there's 2 million different guitar players right now trying to figure out how to become the next Randy Rhoads or whatever it is they're going to be. You have to give yourself an identity. I mean, it's what makes these people last. It's like, why do we sit here and have a different picture in our eyes when we think about Zakk Wylde or when we think about John 5? It's like, what did they do to get that? I mean, you know, there's just certain things that
find something new
that people did. You know, I was fortunate enough with Savatage and with T.S.O. to be, you know, put into a situation, especially with T.S.O., where I was able to just be myself. You know, it's like that's all Paul wanted me to do, to sell what I did on stage, was just be me, you know, and that's a fortunate thing. And if that does get to happen for you, that's fine. But I think it's important for people just to have an identity, you know, and that's make that identity what people want. I mean, like I said, whatever it was that I did, that's what Paul was interested in. I think what people liked about me, and I think it's kind of goes to what you said about your interview too. It's just like, I'm a natural, and I think that sold me on stage, because I don't really see the difference between me and the fans. It's like, I know there is one, you know, I'm up there playing and they're up down there watching, but I don't consider myself to be any different level of a person, or I don't get the rock star thing. I never understood it. I think that's why fans were always kind of confused when they'd see me hanging out in the crowds and the festivals, and it was just like, that's because I'm one of you guys. I just get to go play. It's like I'm lucky enough to go up there and play Mountain King, and you have to sit and watch it. That's
that's because I think that is always as who you are, that makes you feel like more humble, and as well see how exactly it is, because out there, of course, there are another amazing musician like you, and humble, and then enjoy time with fans, but there as well, you know, like the opposite. It's always like we have a lot of different type of people in the business, but it's good to see really guitarist musician like you that really care about, you know, fans, stay in touch with them, maybe, you know, hanging out with them, because this exactly is I mean, we all are human beings, that's for sure. So at least that's one fact.
It gets hard sometimes, because when people know that you do connect, sometimes they try to, and I do respond to people online, and sometimes I'll miss the messages or the things, because being that I am human, there'll be days where I won't get online, where I'll have personal issues or family issues, or, you know, this and that, where I don't have the chance to go and look at things. And when you have a lot of messages, a lot of times things get buried. So if there's anybody who ever ever thought that I was blowing them off. That wasn't the case. Usually I just didn't get a chance to see the messages that I don't answer.
I mean, we are the living proof. I contact you times ago, then we talk later. It's normal. The email goes up and down, but
yeah, that's the only thing I try to.
Yeah, I reach it out in the most simple way, easy way through the social media, and then we did an interview. So that I think it's amazing, because it's not common, that a huge musician answer you on the social media and say, okay, let's do an interview. You have to go through the label, through a lot. So you can show this proof what you said before about yourself. So it's a proof completely. So I want to thank you again, and
well, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
And yeah, for me too. And just hope to see you live some way, somehow. And what else? I wish you a good rest of the day. I think it's like almost lunch day
Well, it's 2:00. I gotta run to there's a farmer's market that closes at 3, so I want to run there and get some, because it's good. There's good things at the farmer's market, and then I'm gonna come back here actually, and I'm working on a single. I want to release one song of my solo stuff before I leave for my tour. So if people look at my Instagram or my Facebook, you can see I've been putting up little clips. It's a song called
I noticed.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a ton of background vocals and things. I like doing my solo songs because I get to just create things. And I think I wish I would have known when I was younger how easy it was. Not easy, but that I could sing as well as I do, because I probably would have been one of the biggest frontmen who ever lived. But I just have so much fun singing. But when you make it as a guitar player, people are like, "Hey, he sings good, but he's a guitarist." It's like you blew that opportunity. I'm like, wow, if I only managed to put it all together, I could have had my own band probably playing with Motley Crue on that last stadium tour. But it's like I just never really knew that singing was something that you could actually teach yourself. I thought it was something that was there. I thought you were just born with the voice, and I didn't realize that you could train the voice. And I think now it's like I sing better every year, and it's just because I'm learning how to use that instrument. So it's fun though. I have a lot of fun singing.
Doesn't matter. So we can see some solo soon, basically. He's gonna release, so that's amazing. So there is a lot of things going on, and maybe one day maybe you will have your own band, so like you will be the singer and not the guitarist, man.
Yeah, well, I like doing my solo tours too, but the problem with what I had with that was the fact that when I went to do my solo tours, there was Circle and there was John Oliva's Pain, so a lot of the festivals wanted some Savatage songs, so they were booking John and Zach. So I wanted to just be me, and they were like, well, we already have the Savatage guys. So it was kind of difficult for me to get it off the ground, because when you're starting something new, it's really easy. It's much easier to work touring around the festival shows, though, especially in the summertime in Europe. So it was kind of difficult for me to sell it at times. And then I just kind of got to the point where I wanted to do it for fun, and it was too much work having all the responsibility of it being my band.
So
I was like, that is when it wasn't being fun to do my own music, and I was like, I got to take a break from this and just go back to being a musician. So
it's not easy.
The business side of doing my solo thing is why I kind of backed away from doing it, because it was just it was too much work for me. I was kind of managing myself and working with people, and it was way more than my brain wanted to handle.
No, but anyway, I think who knows? Everything can happen. Everything can happen.
I'm gonna run before the farmer's market closes.
Okay, and I'm gonna go to eat what arrived. I don't know how many minutes ago. So thank you so much. It was really fun and pleasure. See you soon, and let you know about today's interview. Have a nice day.
You
Bye,
too.
Chris.
Thank you. Bye.